I hope we still have a mastermind. It's on the calendar, so it's happening.
Right. Hey, Jessica used to suggest like wearing your name badge upside down on purpose. That way, whenever people would, hey, your name badge is, oh, thank you. Get you noticed.
It actually works. I can tell you that.
Let's try that.
Right. All right. Well, we are recording, so Tina, please keep the language to a minimum. We go ahead and start the video. It's Tony Robbins. That's a pretty good one. I got to thinking, I don't know, I saw something here a while back, some movie or TV or show or something. This kid was talking about, he was all upset and everything. The guy told him, just cheer up. And I kind of got to think about how often that happens. You know what I mean? If, get into a funky mood or whatever, you know what I mean? And somebody just cheer up, get out of it. It's easier said than done sometimes. So I got to look and I found this video. It's a really cool way. It's because he talks about, he's pretty realistic. I mean, you're not going to be 100% positive about every single thing that happens from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. It's not about that. It's about realizing the negative stuff that comes in and changing it to a positive thought. It's not necessarily, you're not going to just be perfect 100% person every day, all day, every minute of your life. So this kind of is a way to, it's got he talks about a 7-day program or a 7-day thing where anytime you have a negative thought or something, doesn't, goes wrong, whatever, you don't dwell on it, you automatically replace it. And then you just go for 7 days. And if, anytime during a time, you just have a day where you just and you just can't take it and you just let everything, eat you up, you just start over. So what I'd like to do is everybody try this. And then next Monday, we'll just see how everybody did or whatever. But go ahead and start the video and let me know what y'all think.
Number one, decide to develop the habit right now, the habit of focusing on what's right in your world instead of what's wrong. The habit of focusing on what you do have instead of what you don't have in a situation. And as basic as that is, and as well as you know it, you've got to make it a habit, because those habits form the chain of your ultimate character, of who you become and how you end up living your life. We've got to condition ourselves, because if we don't, we'll go back to the automatic state that most people live in today's society. The way to develop the habit is to go on a mental diet. I did this several years ago. As positive as I was going through unbelievable pain at the time. I'd had some major disappointments, some frustrations. I felt like I'd given it all. But what turned me around is one day I picked up this book called The 7-Day Mental Diet. It was a tiny little booklet. And all the booklet really did was, for about 12 of the 14 pages, it challenged me to really see if I could really truly, for 7 days, live my life without one negative thought. And it kept saying throughout the book, now don't just say, yeah, I can do it, and don't just say, I'm going to do it. Think for a while before you commit to this. Don't actually commit unless you're really going to do it for 7 straight days, no matter what. It doesn't mean you don't have a negative thought. It just means that if you have a negative thought, you don't speak it. You set it aside. You forget about it. Or you replace it. If you say something negative, you go erase. What I really mean is this. Or you say, that's not what I mean. Here's what I mean is this. And you immediately focus on something good. It's not that nothing negative ever comes out. It's that you immediately do not allow yourself to hold a negative feeling, a negative thought for 7 straight days, day and night, even when it gets tough, even when somebody disappoints you, even when you get frustrated, even when you give your all and it still turns up lousy. Listen, if all I did was rant and rave on this tape and you didn't listen to anything else I said, but you took on this 7-day challenge, you can't believe what it'll do to your life. Now, I got to tell you, when I first read the book, I thought, wait a second, being positive isn't going to change my life. I got to deal with the real problems around me, those real challenges that are out there. I don't want to just be positive. Somebody says, how's it going? I go, I'm doing great. And they go, why? You go, I don't know, but I just feel good. I don't want to be that way. I want to be real. I want to be on top of things. But you know what? I thought, wait a second. I can be positive about solutions. I can still notice that there's some challenges out there without being negative about it. I can look at the challenges and say, okay, here's what's good about this. Here's how we can use this. Here's how we can turn this thing around. And continue to focus on that. So I took on the challenge for 7 days, changed my life. Now, by the way, one of the keys is you have to have 7 straight days of being absolutely positive. Not one negative thought, not one negative expression that you hold on to. Got to let go of it immediately. If you do not do this, if you're 3 days into it and you do well, and then you have a bunch of negativity, you got to start over. And you know what? After you go about 4, 5, 6 days in a row doing really well, something major negative is going to happen. How's that for some positive programming? But what it is a test to see how committed you really are. I'll tell you something, after 7 days, you feel like a different person. People around you respond to you like you're different as well. All you want to do is establish the habit of noticing what you do have instead of what you don't have. Noticing what's great about a situation versus what's not great. Focusing on solution instead of problems. That's what changes your life. Here's key number 2. Instead of judging yourself and others, decide, remember these are decisions, decide right now to become curious instead of judgmental. But remember, when you find fault in other people, when you start noticing constantly how they've wronged you, how this person is not good enough, or they're too egotistical, they're too proud, or they don't really care about people, as soon as you start judging other people, you just got to remember something. If you start judging other people, you're going to also start judging yourself intensely. If you're angry at other people, there's a very good chance you're angry at yourself as well. Maybe we need to perceive more and judge less. Maybe instead of finding fault with other people without really thinking about what they've gone through to be where they are this day, maybe we can get really curious about what's making this person be in the state they're in, or what's the motivation behind this person's anger. For example, a lot of times we think somebody's being negative or angry or we're frustrated with them, but we never bother to find out what's really going on. I know myself, I was at a party recently and I fell prey to this. There was a woman who came to the party. Everybody behind her back was talking about how unbelievably egotistical this woman is, how negative she was. But you know what? I sat next to her at dinner time and I got a chance to really find out who she was. I got curious about her. And I began to find out about all the pain she'd been through in her life. When I realized was this woman was just barely hanging on to her life. She just needed to know that people cared, but she was so afraid of being rejected that she put out this ego because she didn't want someone to reject her, so she figured she'd reject them first. And I got a chance to really know her, and she was a wonderful person. I'll tell you something else we've got to be careful of that ties in with this, of our being judgmental. Out of our fear of having heroes in our society today, we seem to try and consume them and destroy them as quick as we can. We try to find something that's wrong with our heroes because, boy, we don't want another Jim Jones. We don't want another Jim Baker. Remember, we got to judge less, perceive more. We got to get curious. Instead of living in a society where we're so afraid to believe in anything or anyone that we believe in nothing at all, and we lose our power of positive thinking. We try to protect ourselves from things we maybe not even need to protect ourselves from. Or we live in a society where we try and destroy our heroes, where we take somebody like Barbara Walters, an incredible broadcaster, a woman of incredible integrity, who gets nailed by one person in a book, and it's in every newspaper across the land, how she probably stomped on people to get where she was. That's absurd. Or Martin Luther King, after he's passed on, somebody comes back and stomps all over his career and his reputation. Is that the society we want to live in? Any person who takes glee in watching another person's pain will experience plenty of pain themselves. Remember the quote, "He who is without sin, let him cast the first stone." The bottom line is if you go looking for brown, you're going to find it anywhere you look for it, in others or yourself. Free yourself from the disease of making others wrong, and you'll free yourself from the disease of making yourself wrong. You have a lot more energy to create solution instead of problems. It's part of the power of positive thinking instead of falling for the destructive power of negative thinking. If you want to get curious, just ask yourself, what do I like about this person? Wonder what's going on with this person that would make them feel this way. How could I help this person? As you ask these kinds of questions, you may learn something about how human beings operate, about their motivations, maybe even some things about how to support yourself as you try to support others. Remember, get curious instead of judgmental. Here's key number 3. If you really want to develop the power of positive thinking as a habit, as a lifestyle, as a strategy for success, then decide right now to find something to appreciate from any seemingly negative person or situation. And develop the habit of giving compliments. See, if you really want to have some more positive feelings in your life, you got to keep focusing on what's right. You got to get curious. And most importantly, you got to find something to appreciate even in the tough times. Because in reality, as we've talked about so often before, the toughest times in your life sometimes provide you with the real resources to change your life. So what we've got to do is find something to appreciate. Not someday when things work out. We got to appreciate where we are right now. And this is something I talked to my daughter Jolie about today. Because she's in an experience today where I thought, well, gosh, she's not being very positive. And I'm going to talk about positive thinking. Because she came in to see me and she's feeling really sad. She's feeling really down, feeling really frustrated. And you know what her problem is? Her problem is she tried out and won the right to be amongst 3 girls who dance in the electric light parade at Disneyland. And that was about 3 or 4 months ago. She's been going there after school every day, driving from San Diego up to Anaheim, burning herself into the ground, getting up and going to school to be a straight A student still and trying to visit with her family and her boyfriend. And she found herself maxing out. Now think about her problem. Her problem is that she gets to be at Disneyland and fulfill a childhood fantasy. Her problem is that she loves her family and wants to be with them as well. Her problem is she loves to be at school and really do that. Her problem is she has so much abundance that she has to figure out how to get it all in one day and she can't do it. And she's physically burning out. That's her problem. And you know what? She says, gosh, I want to be home. I want to be with you guys and all these things. I don't want to miss out on all this great time we have together. I want to be with you guys. I said, but honey, look what you're doing. She goes, yeah, I don't want to miss out on Disneyland either. I don't want to miss out on my career and what I'm doing and what's going on. What's the problem? The problem is she's finding out what's negative in both situations. She's focusing on what she doesn't have instead of what she does have. Now, I could be negative about that and say, gosh, be more positive. But you know what? In reality, I realized being negative in this situation may not be bad. What do I mean? I don't mean being negative. I mean being intelligent. I mean being critical in your thinking. Seeing what you don't have is sometimes useful too. This is what I promised you in terms of the power of negative thinking. Here's how negative thinking can be useful. I sat down with her and I said, honey, let's look at the advantages and disadvantages of both. Let's not just be positive. Let's look at it. The whole thing is positive. Let's know that no matter what you choose, you've won. You have what most people dream about. But for a moment, let's be a little bit critical. What do you love about Disneyland? What's great about it? What is it giving you? And let's ask the question that maybe we don't ask very times when we're just being purely positive. What isn't it giving you? What are you afraid about? What are you missing by being there? What's great about being at home more? What's great about those things? What's not great about that? Be honest. If you were there, what might happen that's not good? What might you miss out on? And you know what? By getting her to use both positive and negative thinking, or to be more accurate, positive thinking and some critical thinking, looking at what isn't there for the moment, what she is missing out on, and allowing that pain to motivate her, she was able to clarify what's most important in her life and what's the best way to do that. And she came up with a plan that totally empowered her. And after a couple hours of conversation and fun, she looks better than she has in about 6 months because she's finally resolved what's most important. And sometimes just being positive and keeping a stiff upper lip isn't enough. Sometimes you got to stop and say, I am positive. I'm going to approach this from a positive way. I'm going to stay in a positive state. But I'm going to ask some questions some people may think of as negative, which is what isn't working? Because if you're not willing to look at what isn't working, you can get yourself in trouble. So when I say number 3 is develop the habit of noticing something you can appreciate out of the situation, even something that seems to be negative. What I mean by that is find out what's working, but also appreciate what isn't working. Appreciate it enough that maybe it creates enough pain for you to want to make a change. Hey, being purely positive all the time is not the ultimate solution. Being purely positive 98% of the time to me is the solution. Remember our steps. Number 1, you're going to focus on how it really is. And that's what we did today. Jolie and I sat down and said, let's see how it really is. And let's not just be positive. Let's stop for a second. How is it really? What's good? What isn't good? What's great? What isn't great in this context? Everything is great, but comparatively, what's great? What's not in both situations? Now, how do you really want it? And she decided how she wanted it. Now, what are we going to do to make that happen? And she began to take actions that have changed her life. Probably will affect the direction of her life, maybe even her career. And she feels joyous and excited because she went through the steps. That's the balance between positive and negative thinking. But one thing you got to remember, you're going to spend most of your time being positive. Once you see how it is, that's it. Decide what you want and make it happen. Don't keep going back and saying, oh yeah, but it's not working. See, balance doesn't mean you spend 50% of your time positive and 50% of your time negative. Remember, balance on a human scale is a little different. Negative experiences are dense, and it doesn't take a lot of those focuses of negative to weigh a lot in your life. Make sure your focus is primarily positive, but at times, at special times that you designate, you're going to say, hey, what isn't working? And allow that pain to drive you to do something that's very positive. That'll change your life. Here's key number 4. Decide not to be perfect. You say, what? I said, decide not to be perfect. One way to make sure you're negative is always trying to be perfect. Because you know what? You're always going to notice you're not, because you're this thing called a human being. When I talk to my daughter, Jolie, and this girl works so hard to be perfect. Everybody seems to love her. She's a straight A student. She wants to be the very best at school. She wants to be the very best at home. She wants to be the very best at Disney. She wants to be the best at everything. And I'm trying to be the best constantly. In the past, she always noticed what wasn't perfect, and that created pain. So you can't do that. You're going to screw up. You're going to be negative. Things are going to happen where you don't follow through on what you know. You're going to make poor decisions. You're going to say things you shouldn't say, do things you shouldn't do, mess up like you shouldn't mess up. But you know what? When that happens, instead of being negative and beating yourself up and saying, boy, here's another example of me sabotaging myself, decide what you do want. And say, you know, I'm not perfect, but I am good. And what makes me good and what makes me great and what can make me excellent is as soon as I notice I'm not on track, I correct it and I get better. Your goal each day is to get better, not to be perfect. And that's all anyone can ask of you. If every day you really try and contribute more, be more, and do more than you were slightly the day before, that's all anybody can ask. And if you know you're going to screw up and you don't make it a catastrophe, it's easier to bounce right back up. See, the only way you fail is if you quit. But if you learn something and you expand from it and you make some new decisions that enhance your life and the people you care about, then there is no failure. Don't try to be perfect because you'll never succeed.
That sounds like Scott. That's bold.
Yeah, no.
Habit of positive thinking.
Yeah. One of these times I'm going to do a challenge and see, write down how many bold laws people can pick up out of one of these things.
I gotta memorize all the laws first.
Well, that's true. Speaking of bold, we were actually supposed to have somebody else. Apparently he didn't make it though. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I thought that was pretty cool because, like you said, it's about progress, not perfection, under the law. So you have to decide not to be perfect because nobody's perfect. And if you're trying to be perfect, then you're always going to be finding something wrong. And then like focus on what's right, not what's wrong. What you have, what you don't have. It's kind of generally, what everybody likes to think, but sometimes it's easier said than done. Sometimes you can get to focusing on, what you don't have and what is native, and that's not good for anybody. Another thing I wrote down, I kind of paraphrased a little bit, but don't judge your inside on other people's outside. Maybe some other people have heard that. That's very true. It's real easy to see somebody doing well and succeeding and just really kicking tail and taking names. And it's really hard to forget that they've got struggles too. They've got things that they have to overcome every day. Some, oppositions and stuff and things that they deal with. Just because somebody looks like they're, a mile ahead of everybody doesn't always mean that they are. And then I also liked how he said to use the negative thoughts with your positive thinking, because it does have a place. I mean, because sometimes you do have to be, like he said, critical thinking. You have to be really see the whole picture. You can't just focus on one thing or the other, good or bad, because there are both sides. And then use the negative way of looking at things to kind of see what you're missing out on, what you need to do, what you need to change to be more positive. But yeah, the main thing though, that the very last thing I wrote down, or last two things: decide not to be perfect and progress, not perfection. The only way you fail is if you quit. If there's a difference between not accomplishing something and failing. There's a big difference. So I always try to keep that in mind. Did anybody else have anything else that they really picked up out of it? That I can't hear you, Ashley.
I was talking to my girls.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry.
I think not being perfect causes pain. Say things and do things. Don't say things and do things that would self-sabotage yourself.
Right.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the piece that he pointed out. Positive thinking is not always the solution.
Right.
I think it's how you react to it. Instead of it comes to you, it's gonna come to all of us. How do we react? What do we do differently than most of society?
Exactly. And it's kind of, you have to actually really be pretty self-aware to do that too. Because I think a lot of people, it's just fallback, you know what I mean? Something negative happens and they just automatically absorb it and like, oh no, something bad's happening again. It takes a real focused mindset to be able to recognize that stuff and have it change those thoughts. So it's not easy by any means. And like I said, I think that's why most people just kind of fall back to just their normal learned behavior. So what else you got?
The other thing I like was decide not to be perfect.
Yeah.
And that's something I battle with is the same thing he talked about with his daughter. If I want to be everywhere, I get that FOMO going on and then being contagious. Because you are, yeah. As Sherry just said, I'm not perfect. I don't want to be perfect. And I think as Sherry was talking about that, on the failure side, it's looking at it as an opportunity, and then analyzing that negative thought as he's talking about, to make sure you approach that the right way whenever you ask, if you screwed something up asking for forgiveness, following when you're sword in the right way, not just impaling yourself in the heart, but also, putting it back in the sheath and saying, hey, I gotta surrender to this, I messed up. And that's something that's very hard in this business, because we are real estate professionals. That's something I took from Bowl.
Yep.
I always wanted to be a professional football player. I'm now a real estate professional. I've got and I am experienced. And that's the thing that goes back to this is, hey, I'm getting better every day.
Yep.
And that means I'm doing my fiduciary duty for my clients. And then I don't have to be perfect. I can't know everything.
Right.
And this reaffirmed that, and I kind of pulled a lot of those thoughts together. And this is also something I took away from a coach I have that's been pouring into me. He said, when you fail a second time, then it becomes a decision, not simply a mistake. And that was the other thing I took back. I said, okay, hey, it's okay to fail. Whenever you fail again, you're deciding that you're okay with that failure. And that's different. And then it's the decision of, are you going to quit and just not achieve that, and then you are a failure, or are you going to make that decision to do it? And I always thought it was 1-2 step. Well, like 1, 2, 3 steps in my brain. And that's kind of what I've been working through. And I'm not saying that's life. That's just something I've been.
No, I like
trying
that.
to do lately.
But on the same note, if you try a different approach to the same problem and you fail again, it might just be a matter of finding the right
There you go.
approach.
Yeah, there's way more depth to that. Because from that failure I was speaking of was the fact that I didn't get something done.
Right.
It wasn't something I tried that was new. It was the fact that I just chose not, I didn't time block correctly to get that done. I can do that. The time blocking was really the failure, and then I chose not to do it again, and I failed. And it's okay, if you keep choosing the same thing, you're stuck in a cycle.
Right.
And then where's that change gonna happen? Are you gonna do it, or are you just gonna quit?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if you do something and then you try it again the exact same way and it failed, obviously it's gonna fail again. Yeah, I agree.
That doesn't make sense. Yeah,
Right,
you gotta
but-
change so much.
Right. Right. So.
Sorry, I need to expand a little more.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Because I mean, you're right though. I mean, like that is true. I mean, if you try something and it didn't work, and then well, I'll just try it again, and you do the exact same thing, yeah, well, obviously it's not gonna work because it didn't work the first time. So that I do like that. All righty, it's about 9:25. Anybody have anything else? Final thoughts or anything?
For me, last night, I was at church at prayer meeting, and it was, this, where he said, perceive more, judge less. And there was a lady sitting behind me, which I had not seen, but when I turned around, obviously she'd either had cancer or she had been in a horrific car wreck. So like part of her face was really indented. She may have even had a black eye. But most people were not speaking to her. So I spoke to the lady to my left because I'm new there. And then I spoke to her behind me. I said, well, tell me your story. Well, then she just opened up. At that point, she just kind of smiled, and I just looked her straight in the face. And not that it was always easy, right? But bless her little heart, her son is in sales from North Carolina, medical sales. He just lost his wife. He has teenage children. He travels anywhere from 8 to 10 days in a row.
Wow.
So she has to fly from Oklahoma to North Carolina to help out at all times, but had the sweetest spirit. But had I not just turned around and just said hi and then tell me your story, I would have never met Linda.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
And she said, after this happened, and before the doctors would allow me to go back out in public, what happened? But she was fantastic.
Cool. Is it dog barking? I like that.
Sometimes we just have to say hi.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's just the fear, you know what I mean?
It
Of,
is, because nobody else sat with her, nobody else spoke to her, and then to sit and have a conversation, just like you and I are looking at one another, it's normal what I would normally do, but for her, at first she kind of kept turning her head, and then pretty soon she just started looking me straight on. So, there's people out there that are all hurting from something. We're not alone.
yeah. And I don't think it's always necessarily, like, oh my God, like them, you know what I mean? I think sometimes it's more, for me anyway, you don't really want to feel like you're putting them on the spot or, or you're bringing it, to attention or something like that. But like you said, just having a normal conversation. I mean, just
treated her like I would have, like I was treating Rhonda to my left.
Yeah.
I treated Linda behind me the same way.
Yeah.
And pretty soon we were all three just having a conversation, and then we were eating together and, just fellowshipping, and it was really, really nice.
Right. And chances are the other two ladies probably never would have talked to her either if you hadn't said something. I mean, they probably never would have. I mean, so that's very cool. All righty, everybody. I got it recorded this time, I think. Got it recorded. So if I was go back and watch it again, looks like we're running out of time. I hope everybody has a great week. Like I said, if try the whole 7-day thing. And like I said, it's not about not having positive thought or negative thoughts. It's about realizing them and replacing them and using them to your advantage and not dwelling on the negative thoughts. So try it out this week. And then like I said, we'll talk again Monday and see how everybody did. Other than that, have a great week. And if anybody needs anything, you know where to find me.
You're gonna grow up and talk more half on the
I did.